scope of this event is to raise awareness on the startup ecosystem of labs of the future.
But even in the ones or in the tens towards the end, lab automation do have a role to play.
Thank you everyone for coming here. My name is Anastasios. I'm a software engineer by background, and I really find it fascinating, all these discussions actually we are doing here. I would like to be very honest with you. All of these things to me, it's a déjà vu. We actually passed this through computer science 10 to 15 years ago when we first actually start building what today is very renowned as a cloud. Okay, all this discussion about standardization, people doing dirty hacks to go around, processes that eventually, they pay off. They don't pay off because actually you have more dirty work that you need to compensate for. And for me, I think what we learned through all these years from computer science is actually start realizing to other fields. And personally, I'm super excited to discuss about what we learned through all this big process and all these years, and try now to apply it into biotechnology, because it's not easy at all, especially when you go outside of the completely virtual world that computer science has made, and you try actually to apply things to the physical layer. So I would like to start with a very short story. You're a scientist, you have a question, and you want to try something to see if actually your idea is correct or not. And I think it's instinctive, that you pick up your pipette and you start trying things. But is this actually the most efficient way to do things? Absolutely not. We know very well that this has a lot of error inside. And not only error in the sense that your idea might be wrong, but actually during your process you might doing so many repetitive tasks again and again that you're just going to lose track. There are some interesting references that actually say that there is even up to 50% error around processes when you do them manually, which of course means you're either going to spend more time developing your product, and this is going to be slow for you, or you have to pay more to make sure you compensate for this amount of error. And the big problem around here that actually kills innovation and kills rapid growth is actually errors and unreliable conditions make you slow. And this is the big factor and the big problem. So obviously, when you're in front of doing something manually, doing something automated, it should be the obvious answer to do something automated, and everyone knows, I think, about that. It's more reliable, it's trackable, it's reproducible, it gives you productivity, and eventually just allows you to go faster to the market. But is it actually enough to do that? And the answer is absolutely no. Compensating for human error is not enough at all, because there is also the problem of communicating what you're trying to do. So this is an example from a book in biotech that actually describing a part of a protocol. I mean, obviously I cherry-picked because this is an interesting example for me. So if you just zoom in into a couple of points, you read words like incubate cells, place cells in a warm moving medium, attach a spinning disk. Okay, but the question is, what temperatures, what CO2 levels, what rotating speeds? Okay, there is a lot of ambiguity behind all that, right? And there is an amazing research landmark that they say that Amgen actually discovered from 53 very big renowned research studies that only 6 can be reproduced. I mean, for a field of science, this is not science anymore, okay? And of course, this has also consequences when it comes to how much this costs, because eventually, yes, corporations care about costs. And we are spending around 30 billion for reproducible studies in US only. It should be self-evident again that we need to do something about that. And there is an answer, okay? We have guests here that they are solving exactly this problem, that you need to express your experiment as code, which gives you a lot of advantages. And this gives you, again, extra benefits when it comes to productivity, when it comes to collaboration. And of course, this has also an amazing benefit of shareability, that you are inside the company, you don't have to just change Word documents anymore. You can exchange QR codes that are far more convenient and less error-prone. So automating and experiments the code for me is just inevitable. If this field needs to go one step forward, it's just impossible to go without having this kind of merits. And don't worry, no one is going to lose their job. Actually, we've seen that with automation, you get more jobs. There is an amazing thing that happened when we start talking about automation and use it, and everything is going to be better and better. We've seen big companies that we went inside their labs to use a lot of them, to buy a lot of automation, but actually this automation is just dusted inside the labs. No one is using it, okay? You just had it yourselves before, okay? No one is using this kind of automation. Why? Okay, why on earth? If it gives us so many interesting benefits, then why we don't use it? Well, when you're faced with something like that, obviously no one is going to use it, right? And we had exactly this problem. I mean, obviously I didn't put an interface from some product in biotech. This is computer science like 10 years ago, okay? You don't understand what's going on. It's obvious. And this is exactly what we try to do with Experoment when it comes to our service. We try to reduce a qPCR to the minimum viable things you need and you already know, okay? This is just, of course, an example. Another thing I just want to mention that, yes, everyone likes automation, but I would really like to highlight with the research we've done at Imperial, this column here, taxi driver versus Google Maps. Which one do you trust the most to tell you how to go somewhere? And obviously, yes, Google Maps knows everything, right? The taxi drivers can also be good, but this is not a question if you can reach your point. It's how easy it is to talk to a taxi driver and how easy it is to talk to Google Maps. Everything is about user experience. Okay, when I was working, for example, at Facebook, one of the things they were telling us is, yeah, it doesn't matter. Build something that is not, is doing everything that our users want, but as long as is doing one thing well, and people are going to adopt that, that's fine. And this is what we're looking for. Now, even though if you might have ninja biotech people that they know how to use all this kind of equipment and they know their stuff very well, this is, again, not enough for what we're trying to do, because we are trying to spark innovation. Innovation, I agree with Mark, that is coming from the small players, because they like risk, they want to go head first. And to do that, you need to solve another problem with capital expenses. Okay, when a lab and a machine that you need to do your job is at least $500,000 just to buy it, obviously I'm not going to do that. Okay? When you have startup companies in software engineering that they need 10,000 to bootstrap and create value of billions. Okay? So capital expenses, how do you solve that? Well, you need a pay-as-you-go system and on-demand services, or else it's impossible. Of course, we do have CROs right now that actually do exactly this, but there is an on-top problem that has to do with what is happening inside. Because when you have a black box to do the job for you, might not work very well. Okay? So another thing we had to solve, at least in computer science, is what the cloud infrastructure, the monitoring part. And this is also another thing we try to target with Experiment, to allow you to see exactly what is happening inside there. Very, very important. So if this sounds completely crazy to you, this is not crazy at all. Already happened 15 years ago with cloud computing. And this is what we want to bring here in biotech with our own initiative. Of course, this is not easy. There is a lot of things you need to take care of. And it's going to take a while, because it's already taking a while. And the way, at least computer science taught the way, is start small. Start small, very specific. And you care about scalability, both horizontal and vertical. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. But start in a very, very specific thing that is, let's say, more or less easy to do. And this is why within immuno-oncology and also parts of sequencing has amazing value to start from there. And we're targeting some very specific assays just to prove that this thing can work and can be easy, and there is adoption for at least the very basic things and the dirty work you want to try. Of course, the whole point is that you should be able to go to what we call custom protocols, which is we give you direct access to the machines themselves, and you can rearrange things in any way you want to. So it's not only a matter of what kind of liquids you want and what kind of volumes you want, but it's also about developing your own assays from scratch. And this is going to be a very big challenge, of course. But as Joanna said in the previous panel, a very interesting thing is that if you decompose the things into smaller pieces, you will see more or less very well-known patterns, which are your equipment are more or less the same. Of course, there are variations, and this is a big problem in the field. Again, solved in computer science, but not in the biotech, but eventually we will need to go there. It will come organically. One thing I like to remind myself here is that big revolutions in computer science actually came when visionary people took away the toys from the people, in the sense that if I take the lab away from the people that are inside the lab, I can actually work much faster, and I can just export to them the information and the things that are important to them. But whatever has to do, with the mechanical part, the communication part, with the standardization part, I'll take care of that. Okay? Because when things are so fragmented in such an early state, centralization actually works much better. Just because you don't need to convince 1 billion people, you need to convince 10 people that they're in the same room in the same town. And this came organically into computer science with the cloud evolution. We had single computers and companies building solutions for your home computer or for specific very dedicated and embedded systems. And then we saw, well, we had new needs, and we had to scale this. We had to take computers, collaborate one to another, and we start building data centers. I mean, big universities and big corporations had their own data centers in premise that they to analyze the data, do their job. And eventually we understood that there is so much effort on doing this, that there are so many difficulties around, that you have to do what we call in computer science separation of concerns. Different people with different expertise, they need to care about the specific parts. Of course, you need to, there is a need for communication around to understand the problems and the needs of each other, but nevertheless, an expert needs to solve the specific part. They don't have to solve every problem existing out there. Now, something to not be misunderstood here is that it's not that cloud actually vanished. It's just that the needs changed as we move forward, and we needed to scale it. But the whole stack is important. Now, the same thing we think is happening in biotech. And this is why we place ourselves, at least, of the equivalent of what AWS and what Azure might be in computer science. Experoment is working in a very, very simple way, or at least this is our target to go. You just describe your experiment. We allow you, these are, especially if you use products like Synthase and DeepMinder, you should be familiar with exactly the same concept. It's just that, coming completely from the cloud in your laptop, maybe at home. Okay? And the whole idea here is that we toss away ambiguity. We care about accuracy. We try to reduce the errors, especially simple errors like variables out of ranges and stuff like that. And most importantly of them all, you shouldn't care about the technical details. Okay? You shouldn't care if actually your plate reader is properly calibrated, and if you have enough stock of your supplies, and if the reagents are expired or not. Okay? You care only about what you want to do. How? We will take care of this. And by the way, no human interaction, very important. Okay? No emails back and forth and 2 months of meetings. All right, so next step, obviously, we are going to execute this for you. With, of course, security and equipment. And this is why we're quite capital intensive, because yes, someone needs to buy all this kind of equipment. But one important thing is that this should feel like it is your own lab. Okay? Exactly like a lot of people point out, this is not easy. No, I'm not going to claim this is easy. Okay? But it should go there, or else there's no evolution of what we do. And it is possible. Okay, we are completely claiming that this is possible. If the technology is there, it's on the infancy, as most of you said again, but it's there. Okay, and we can do it because we already done it somewhere else. And the last part is, accessing your data. Again, a very big problem. What does it mean? Spreadsheets and values and numbers all over the place. No, you need to be organized. You need to be concrete. You need to have some standards. Even though if those standards are internally to a company or amongst 5 important companies, this is still a huge leap forward, because currently there's nothing like that. Okay, and another important thing that we're also going to discuss in the next panel is not that you only have results. This is not the only thing you should care about. There are also other types of data around, like lab data, what exactly is happening, how the machines are working, and how they're behaving, because you should correlate those things. Live data, and also the experiment itself. Because you might be doing, one example I would like to always discuss is that, during your experiment, you understand that something is wrong and you need to change something. Well, if you just change over the night because you do things manually, you will never remember what you've done. And then you will come up with a paper or some kind of publication. Yeah, I did that, but no, you didn't. And this actually has an amazing potential, because if you separate those things, and something I would really like to point out here is that we are not going to do the analysis for you. Okay, we want to be an infrastructural tool for you. And the reason we don't pick that is, again, to inspire innovation, because now you can take other companies like Blue Ridge, for example, which is a partner of ours, to come and jump in and help you analyze your data, help you understand what's going on there. And imagine, the potential when you create an app store around that. New companies with cool AI algorithms or huge analytical capabilities that can come in and take your data and give you answers around that. Because when you have, because it's very important, one thing that we say very often in computer science is garbage in, garbage out. Okay, it doesn't matter how cool algorithms you have as long as your data are completely dirty. Okay, it's completely pointless. So you need a very clear signal about what you do, and then you can understand it. But if you don't see, well, it doesn't matter. So Experoment, the way at least we see it is that we allow you to unlock your full potential regarding to data. Not because we do something cool, it's just we give you a very stable infrastructure. And there is a funny quote, again, I'm quoting Facebook, move fast with stable infrastructure. If you don't have infrastructure, you're doomed. Okay, there's nothing you can do there. There's no point of reference. The last thing I want to mention, again, a very big lesson from computer science is that a lot of people care about proving something, but when it comes to scaling this something to a real solution, things go really, really, really bad. Okay, really, really bad. It's very nice to have a toy example in your computer, but when you want to ship this software to 1,000 people or even 10 people, things can go really messy. So I was hearing a lot, this idea of scaling, scaling scaling my solution, scaling my drug, and all this stuff. But I never really understood what scaling means in biotechnology. And the reason I never actually understood that is because in computer science, we separate scalability into completely two different fields. Okay, we have what we say scale up and scale out. Scale up is when you go from a small size to a larger size by doing exactly the same thing. It's just, in a bigger amounts. So imagine you have, one service that is, generating some kind of, for some specific type of DNA, and now you have 10,000 clients more, and you need to scale your production. But scale out is kind of different, is when you need to expand to new kinds of experiments and new kinds of ideas. So scale up, we can do it today in the sense that, yes, you have an amazing instrument, it's working very well, and now you want to jump into something far more with much more throughput. It sounds easy. It's extremely difficult, like most of the things. The reason is that you don't know what we call the equivalence of these two instruments, in the sense that something works with these parameters here, so not sure it's going to work there. But as a user or let's say as a scientist, you shouldn't care about that, because you know that if an experiment works in 10 liters, it should work in 100 liters. But we as providers, we need to understand how this machine works and how is the other to give you this analogy. This is a very, very hard problem to solve. And the second part, when it comes to scale out, this is actually the example I like to highlight also in computer science, is that there is someone that wants to do something, and of course it needs a whole stack of people below, to help this person to do the job. And then you have another person that has a new idea on something very different, vastly different, that throws more work, and then more, and eventually you completely block, because there's not enough capacity for you to do it, because there is so many different needs. Okay, there's so much variation of what you're trying to do, and there are maybe there are even cases that you have contradicting conditions, so you have to schedule things on the other side. So what do? You take a second lab in that case. Now, the interesting thing about going to the cloud is that we are prepared of doing that, and from from the technical point of view, this is really hard, but from your perspective, what you should care about is that when you go in this kind of conditions, imagine that when you have a person already communicating with a team on what to do, it needs to retrain, okay? It needs to spend a lot of time, a lot of resources switching to a new team, to a new lab, to new conditions, okay? This takes a lot of time, again, slow. On the other hand, when you're using, when everyone speaks the same language, and there is no variations, the conditions and everything is under specific standards, and standardization, this is why it's so important, scalability is scale out is much, much easier, okay? Because we speak the same language, okay, we just add more and more hardware. It's not going to be easy, but it's pretty much doable. The other one, it doesn't. And of course, you can go even more. So, scalability, especially scaling out, is I think what most current businesses are actually bottlenecked with. Because yeah, changing your scope, going to something new, always create problems, especially from the lab's perspective. So yes, if you find yourself, being against these kind of problems, well, you should actually consider a little bit that cloud may be your thing for the future. So thank you.
This is the first time I've actually seen something in London or Europe being focused on this space. So the idea of democratizing research through cloud platforms for discovery research and target identification, I think is going to be very valuable, especially for early stage biotechs, looking to adopt virtual capital efficient models.
I definitely think the cloud lab is the future of biology, coming from an experimental background myself before moving into bioinformatics. I think effective communication is needed between pharma and startups.
I think I'm really interested in the AI and the data management and how we actually become more efficient at running experiments. So less experiments that will not work from the starting point. So we have less waste in the market and therefore lower costs and accelerated research. It could be a variety of different customers. It could be people who really have no lab and really just have somewhere to actually get the experiments done. Or it could be biotechs outsourcing automation or testing automation on certain applications. So I think it could be a variety of customers, yeah.
Solutions such as the ones that Experoment is looking to develop and offer are hugely advantageous, particularly because the future, as we go towards the future, we're going to see outsourcing being on the rise. And so it's going to be more of an ecosystem where you have partners and providers that are developing certain assays that you're not able to develop in-house. What I'm very excited about is the approach that the startups within the ecosystem have, and that is predominantly coming into life sciences and pharma space with the mentality and the experience of software engineering and other industry verticals. That's going to be hugely beneficial because it's going to bring in new, fresh perspectives that is ultimately going to help develop the process and disrupt the whole system.
Que la famille